It doesn't say it on my agenda, but the first item will be to ask if there are any questions from the public. So we've now added that to a standard part of our meeting. I'll just give Maria or Chris a minute if they've got any questions. And assume that's a no.
No.
In which case we shall move on. Do we have any apologies for absence?
No, everybody's here, I believe.
Fantastic. Do we have any declarations of interest for items on the agenda this evening? I'm just going to look myself. No, if there are none, we shall move on. Minutes of the previous meeting and matters arising. Okay, Councillor Saunders.
It's just a matter arising, Chair. Under 214, the proposal that we supported was, well, it's my understanding, it was successful at the SBC Area Committee.
That's great news.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I can confirm that we've received the letter today. Confirmation.
Fantastic. Any other thoughts, questions? I'm happy to propose we accept those minutes.
Second.
Can we vote on that, please? Great, thank you. Received. I'll just move on to the agenda. Month-end financial reports, to review the month-end reports for both January and February. Does anybody have anything they would like to call out or question for month-end reports? I can just say that the audit was done. If you remember, we were slightly early in the month, in February, due to other clashes, I think, with other meetings, which meant we didn't have the data for January, and we conducted the audits for both January and February, I think Thursday of last week, and they both went without incident. I'll give you just another minute. Any other thoughts? Everyone happy? In which case we shall move on. Thank you very much. The work in progress report. The work in progress report has been updated. I think, Town Clerk, did you want to say a few words about the kind of new style or draw our attention to anything?
Not particularly to draw your attention, but what I've tried to do is actually, you know, a number of us are working on different reports, and I thought try and put it into one Excel spreadsheet with the different tabs, looking at trying to reference the minutes against the actual actions and whether they're being completed. And that's something we'll do going forward. Just any comments on it, really?
I think it's a good addition. I think we talked about the conditional formatting, didn't we, Liz? Because it might make it easier just to sort of update it for people. Those drop-down cells, and perhaps I'm looking at an old agenda, an old copy in the original invite. But I really welcome the change. I think it makes it quite easy to audit and edit across the teams. So it feels like a a good update to me. I note that there's a couple of areas that probably need still adding a bit of data to, but it's a good start. Any thoughts or questions on that? Still happy to leave time if people haven't managed to work their way through it. But Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's actually a very good way of working. I've just had a quick look through it, and yeah, there are some areas where I think the working party or the committee have not yet met since this style came in. But I'm sure we can ask everyone to just keep an eye and update it or suggest updates to it as we go through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Martin. Councillor Irwin.
Just one observation that the neighbourhood plan isn't on the work in progress report. I don't know if that's intentional omission or accidental.
If I can come in, I wasn't sure that the neighbourhood plan had one, but if it does, I will add it.
That's why I asked if it was intentional rather than accidental. And to the best of my knowledge, we don't. We have a plan, but not in that format. So I'm personally quite comfortable not to put it into the work in progress format if everyone else does.
And I would kind of add, Councillor Irwin, that we are progressing quite rapidly at the moment, and the updates are out of date as soon as they're made in some parts.
Exactly, and I know Adrian does a lot of work to keep on top of it, and I'd hate to give her an extra bit of work to do, which isn't wholly necessary or duplicative. Yeah. So I'm absolutely comfortable with it not being on there. I wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, that was also my thought, that if there wasn't already for the neighbourhood plan, I didn't want to add something else, because I know Adrian is very busy at the moment, and
yes,
it's just another piece of work.
Yeah, perfect. That's fine.
Not needed.
Any other further thoughts on the work in progress plan?
Yeah.
If not, I will move us on. Item 6 on the agenda, the annual action plan, to consider the draft action plan and make recommendations to the Town Council. Councillor Martin.
I would suggest that we make a slight change to this document. I think that if we were to take item 6 and rename it neighbourhood plan and housing, and we could then take item 7, delete item A, and move items B and C up into item 6 of the action plan. My reasoning behind that is that it is becoming increasingly apparent that the ability to have a direct impact in that area is very limited for the town council, and actually I think perhaps it is better to enable the authority that is responsible for that to do so, and to work in partnership, as opposed to trying to take on more work that may not make as big a difference as we would like.
I'm comfortable with that proposal. Is that a formal proposal then, to remove 7A and meld B and C into 6 and call it housing? Was that the proposal? Yeah. I'm happy to second that. That makes sense to me.
Yep. That's fine.
Councillor Owen?
Yeah, I think just to Councillor Martin's point, I think it's becoming increasingly clear, probably to the frustration of many, that the use of words like ensure truly affordable housing, is not necessarily within the gift of the neighbourhood plan. I think it can encourage through the identification of land, but I think there's always a risk of using language that we can't necessarily live up to. So I think encourage that would be my only recommendation. We just change C to encourage truly affordable housing rather than ensure.
Mm,
You comfortable with that amendment, Councillor Martin?
mm.
Can we vote on that then? All in favour?
Mm.
That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Any other?
Chair, just sorry, I think Councillor Saunders.
Sorry, Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Chair. It was a number of small amendments to what we've got in the action plan to update it. I can either go through them all or one at a time. So under number 1, the 20-mile-an-hour scheme, I think we need to revise that to probably deliver a townwide 20-mile-an-hour scheme, and to add and develop it further, because I think that's where we are now, assuming we are successful in having the experimental order made permanent. The committee, the 20-mile-an-hour committee, has got a whole set of improvements that it's working on. So I think that needs to be amended.
Councillor Saunders, did you mind if we take one at a time and just vote on them?
Sure,
We can quickly agree them. Each one. Is there anything else in number 1 that anyone else has got or considered or thought make a change? Councillor Martin.
Again, I thought actually amalgamating that one into the second priority there. We know that 20 is plenty also is designed to encourage walking and cycling, so it makes sense to make that one action as opposed to
And
two
define it more widely as
Mhm.
transport and active transport or something.
exactly.
Councillor Hook.
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate to merge 1 and 2, and the title could be something like improve active transport, or you can say improve walking and cycling, I don't mind, and road safety. I think is the key thing, because that's an objective we've had, and I think the deliver a townwide 20-mile-an-hour scheme that needs adapting, just as Councillor Saunders said. I don't know if deliver is the right verb on 2A, because I think Swale are delivering it, but we're supporting them or urging them to do so, but it may not matter too much. But I definitely would like to see the words road safety added to the title of that.
So Councillor Saunders, you carry on. Councillor Saunders.
I was just to clarify with 2A, I mean, it is the town council that's delivering the plan. It's being funded by Swale. So I think that probably is appropriate wording.
If I can summarise what I think I've heard then, deliver is the right verb in 2A. 2 and 1 become merged under active transport and road safety, and that we add a 5th element, which is actually should be between 1A and 2A, which is further develop the townwide 20-mile-per-hour scheme. Those are the amendments I'm hearing.
Can I, as we're merging 1 and 2, can we also refer to continue to campaign for the solar cycleway, because that's a commitment we've made.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes.
So collectively, we're combining 1 and 2. It's going to be active transport and road safety. A will be deliver a townwide 20-mile-an-hour scheme. B will be further develop a 20-mile-an-hour scheme. Then the following 3 points will stand as they exist, and there'll be a supplementary point, which is continue to support the solar cycle route. Yep. Can we just have one proposer? Councillor Saunders, you started the ball rolling. Happy for you to propose that.
Okay, happy to propose.
I'm happy to second. Shall we vote? Great. do we want to walk through the rest? Is there any change anyone can see, consider? Councillor Saunders, you did say you had more. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Number 9, I haven't necessarily got the wording for this, but at the moment we're saying that we're lobbying for an opening Creek Bridge. When the meetings we've had with KCC, it feels as though there's also an issue about financial support for the navigation, and I'm wondering whether we should have some reference to that. It's not. I mean, an opening Creek Bridge on its own isn't the total solution. I mean, it just creates probably an extra problem. I don't have a wording, but I just wonder. I don't know whether other members of the committee feel we should perhaps reference something more in there.
Interestingly, I mean, my personal feeling is, sitting on the subgroup, I think, that is looking into that piece of work, is that there is still an ongoing investigation into, you know, rights and ownership around that, and that actually, you know, that whole item in the plan will probably need resetting once that subgroup can come back with a view of rights and responsibilities. And while we can make adjustments now, I feel that that's kind of a bit premature in light of that subgroup and its investigations. But I welcome everyone else's thoughts on that.
Well, 2 things, a general one and a specific one. The general one is we could add in another bullet point somewhere, which is along the lines of developing the creek, or supporting the development of the creek as a place for boating or maritime activities, both for work and for pleasure. Because there's also, we've got the whole issues with Town Jetty, and I wish to restore that and make more out of that asset that I think isn't covered somewhere in the action plan yet. So I think we could add something like that on. I think to make the point that I think Councillor Saunders is making, which is that it's not just the bridge, there's also the sluice gates. We could add on the words an opening bridge and working sluice gates to enable the basin to be used for maritime activity. I mean, I think there may be some hesitation because we don't yet know what the landscape of that looks like in terms of including the costs and so on, unfortunately, because some people keep moving the goalposts on that. But I think we could legitimately say that our goal is an opening Creek Bridge and working sluice gates.
I'm comfortable with that. I've taken the words down, then I'll kind of repeat them back in a minute. Councillor Martin?
I was going for a slightly simpler form of words of an opening Creek Bridge and maritime regeneration of the creek area.
Yeah, simplifies it, doesn't it? Definitely. Happy with that.
I'm gonna repeat back slightly different form for everything then, and I'm going to propose this and we can see where we get to. So I think A becomes an opening Creek Bridge and working sluice gates, and I think we add C, which is supports maritime regeneration of the creek and its surround. Councillor Irwin.
I do agree with C. I just wonder though, because again, ultimately this is about delivery, isn't it? And the mechanism through which we can influence delivery of regeneration, again, it's in the neighbourhood plan. I wonder whether it goes in there. So by setting the framework, which enables others to, public and private bodies, to contribute to its regeneration. Just an idea.
I mean, I'm happy with that idea. What would the wording be again? Sorry, Councillor Irwin. Supports the
Take your wording and put it in number 6.
in number 6.
Yeah.
I see. I thought we had agreed that number 6 was around housing, though. We had combined
Right. Okay.
6 and 7 to become housing, whereas I think
Right. Well, yeah. All right. I'll keep quiet then.
no.
No, it's difficult because we don't have. Well, does it go because it crosses between community-based uses and community regeneration, and it also touches upon economic regeneration. But I don't really want to go there because I know it's not something we've put within our remit, so I'm reluctant to use the term. But you know, certainly part of encouraging community use of the creek and basin could fit into community group spaces and events. You know, we want to make it accessible. We want to make it usable, ultimately by the community. So it could go into community. But you know, let's not be pedantic about it. I think as long as it's captured somewhere, or it's going to be a long night.
So I'm gonna repeat what I think. I'm proposing that number 9A is an opening creek bridge and sluice gates and working sluice gates. And C, we add supports the regeneration of maritime activity around the creek and basin.
Perfect.
Does anyone want to second that?
I'll second.
Councillor Irwin was first. Should we vote on that, please? Thank you. Unanimous. That's number 9. Councillor Saunders, any further thoughts?
Well, 10, I think we should probably refer to increasing the income from the community lottery for community groups, something like that.
As an element, as a D. Yeah, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I've got one word change, I think. Under item 3, climate and biodiversity, I think item B, we should just remove the word back. Why are we encouraging people just to increase biodiversity in their back gardens? Why not? If they want to do it in the front garden, why not let them?
Any garden, anyway.
Good stuff.
It just doesn't, to my mind, it doesn't make sense having that one word in there. That's
Yeah.
all.
I'm fine with that. Do we need to vote on that? Should we vote on that quickly? We haven't. We're going to go back to number 10 because we haven't voted on that. All those in favour, removing back?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. Going back to number 10. What was the wording you're proposing, Councillor Saunders? Increasing. I think you were increasing income.
Sorry, Councillor Saunders, you're speaking to mute.
Sorry, to increase income from the community lottery. I think that's probably sufficient.
Yeah.
Great. Any thoughts on that? Everyone happy to vote on that?
Yeah, agreed.
In favour? Yeah, agreed. Any other thoughts on the action plan?
Yeah, just one last one actually.
Councillor Hook.
The town council's 2 biggest assets almost certainly are the Guildhall and 12 Marketplace, and there's a good reference to them under 10B about providing free use for community groups, and there's a sort of implied reference on 10A about hosting the permanent exhibition of Magna Carta. But we also have a commercial activity, which is the renting of the Guildhall for weddings. And I think maybe we either reference that specifically, or perhaps there's a 10D to go in there, which is something like promote or encourage use of the Guildhall and 12 Marketplace for commercial or for a wide range of purposes. So for things other than simply the free use, because we do have some people who have or might want to rent them and use them. And they are at the moment, well, they're empty all the time at the moment, but in normal service, they're empty a certain amount of the time, and there may be potential to use them more and generate an income for the council, or generate community benefits furthermore.
Yeah, that'd be better.
I mean, to some extent, we do that anyway, don't we? I mean, I'm happy to. I mean, it's not for me to be happy or not, but happy to that it's added as an action plan item. But to a greater or lesser extent, we already do that, don't we? But
I mean, there's other things in here we already do as well. I sort of didn't think this was just things we're not already doing.
Okay. So that's promote the commercial use of 12 Marketplace in the Guildhall.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone happy with that? Everyone agree?
Agree.
Everyone's nodding. Unanimous. We'll take that. Thank you. Anything else we wanted to add, change? No. Okay, I'll move us on. Thank you. Draft meeting calendar. Has everyone had a chance to review it? Does anyone have any? Town Clerk, did you want to talk us through any particular sort of changes from what's happening today that might be worth pointing out?
Check in relation to what changes, sorry.
The draft calendar for 21-22.
Well, this has been done very kindly by Councillor Ben Martin. Thank you again for that. And we're just following the same procedure as this current year. So with meetings, so they fall on the same day of the month as they do at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Is there anything you wanted to talk us through, or you happy with it?
There's nothing major. You'll spot there's a few that don't match up with their normal first Mondays or whatever, but that is all bank holiday stuff. So it's, and I did look very carefully. I know we had the issues this year where our staff ended up having to work in the Christmas break. So if you notice in January, rather than having the first full council bang on that first Monday on the bank holiday, I pushed back. To enable us the ability, if we wish to give staff that time.
Yeah.
So it gives us options. But yeah, nothing, no major changes.
No, it's good.
Councillor Martin?
Yep.
Thank you. The other thing I think we should note, just for the record, is that the working groups will meet via Microsoft Teams rather than having to have physical meetings unless they so desire, which obviously makes it a lot easier to schedule meetings when other people are required to be at them, or people who are members of staff at various other organisations, so that we can fit in with their working hours and their timetables as well. So I welcome that. Thank you.
Funnily enough, I think, isn't item 10 to talk to kind of how committees and meetings are conducted post the 7th?
Yes.
So I guess we'll touch on that later. So I'm taking it the draft meeting calendar is to note. Councillor Ben Martin.
There was one element that I did forget to mention there, and that is you'll notice the blue bars at the bottom. Those are meetings which are primarily swale meetings, but do have an impact for the town council. So you've got the JTB there, which I know affects the ability of attendance immediately for some councillors, and also the dates for the planning committee for the next year at Swale, which again is fairly useful. You never know what applications are going to come up in the Faversham areas and whether or not the town council may want to send someone to represent the town's views on them. Just as a sort of reference element.
Yeah, very helpful. Do we need to vote to accept this or propose it to the council? I'm not clear.
Yeah, I thought you made a good point about the fact that the electronic meetings issue is coming up later. And I wonder if we should have that discussion and then come back to this.
Yep. Very happy to.
And I'll sort of, that might sound slightly cryptic, but my understanding is, something I want to explore later when we get to item 10, is that going for working groups will still be able to meet electronically, but committees will not. And then if I'm right in that understanding, we might want to discuss whether some of these, what is the difference apart from that between committees and working groups, because I think it's not a very big difference. and whether we might want to redesignate some of these committees as working groups for the convenience of the members, because I think many members of the council have found it advantageous to have electronic meetings with the other responsibilities they have in terms of work, childcare, and other pressures on our lives.
I mean, is it reasonable that we just move on to item 10 and then come back to 8 and 9 in between afterwards, and then deal with it at the time? So, Town Clerk, I think you've done an investigation and spoken with Cllr around this, haven't you? Can you provide us with what's supposed to happen and when?
Yes, well, we're returning to face-to-face meetings at the moment from the 7th of May. Now, I've actually asked Cllr for their opinion on working groups and us continuing to meet virtually. Now, their advice is that we won't be able to do that and that all meetings should be face-to-face. However, although I don't really want to say this, I personally don't agree with the advice that's being given because there's no statutory legislation that says that members of the public can attend working groups. Therefore, if we don't have to hold them in public, I don't see why, if we choose to, that we can't meet via Teams or some other electronic means. There's definitely no legislation about that. It's just the standing committees that the public are allowed to attend, as a statutory obligation for them to attend. And having spoken to colleagues as well, they've questioned the advice as well. So, Councillor Martin, you want to?
Councillor Martin, sorry, I was making notes. Councillor Martin.
No, that's no worries. My understanding is that there is a case currently going through the law courts requesting a reinterpretation of the Local Government Act to try and enable virtual meetings to continue past the current COVID-19 regulations, which may impact on what goes on here. I think the case is being brought by North Hants Council, or one of those have brought it forward, which may well change the case law and change what we are able to do. It's a real mixed bag of a situation. We know full well, at the moment, the 7th of May, that's it. We can't do virtual meetings anymore, but it could change as a result of case law. It could also change because of government opting to follow what's been requested by the LGA, the district councils network, the county councils network, and probably the NAUC as well, asking for us to be able to continue with virtual meetings, if only for a safety point of view, for at least until June, if not as hybrid form in the longer term. It's tricky, and I think that the Town Clerk is right in many respects. We can still have members of the public at those working groups, even if they're virtual anyway. And they have been exceptionally useful, to my mind, from an equalities point of view as well. Not just here, but in other places. We've been able to have people attend those meetings who wouldn't otherwise be able to because they can't get between meetings, travelling, or because of childcare, whatever. It's been a real benefit from a dreadful situation that I think we would like to continue if we possibly can.
Councillor Hook, I think you wanted to come in there, and I'm not sure if Madam Mayor, you also raised your hand for that. Councillor Hook.
I thought what the Town Clerk said was really important, and I agree with the Town Clerk that I wouldn't necessarily take a statement from Cllr as a definitive statement of the position. And I think we need to look further. I'd be interested actually to read Cllr's document, and I expect it may well be the case that, bear in mind that the way we're structured is that our committees don't take that many decisions, if any. They by and large report to the full council that has to ratify those decisions. It may well be that the full council has to meet physically, but everything else could be done electronically, which would be, I think, quite a good balance, quite a good situation.
I agree.
if I could just come in, because I think this week the Coronavirus Act is being looked at, because it has to be agreed every 6 months, doesn't it? And it may well be. I'm not 100%, but my understanding is if they agree the Coronavirus Act for a further 6 months, that would also include the virtual meetings, because that's it comes within that act. So, and I think that's being looked at on Thursday, so we may hear further, but certainly I think we need to either start looking at our delegations, because we met straight. We didn't really have a break, did we? A year ago, we were able to go straight in and start having virtual meetings. Many other councils have gone, they went down the delegation route, which we have so far avoided. But that is one option, that that more delegation to officers. It's just looking at different ways. But at the moment, hybrid meetings aren't legal, which is a shame. So you can't do either. And I think we just need to wait over the next couple of weeks. But in the interim, if we do have to go back to face-to-face meetings, I think we need to start thinking how that can happen in the Guildhall, and what mitigations that we need to be making there, because certainly the understanding is that there's going to be until the 21st of June, and still after that, it sounds like we still have to wear masks, we still have to be socially distanced. So do we need to start thinking about perspex screens between us? So I think we're going to have to start thinking how we can actually work from the Guildhall in the going forward.
Quite an issue, isn't it?
Councillor Saunders, then Councillor Trevor Martin. Madam Mayor, did you want
No,
to?
no, it's
No,
fine.
okay.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Saunders, then Councillor Trevor Martin.
It was a question really to the Town Clerk. I mean, is there any merit in looking at using 12 the Marketplace in the short term for meetings? Is that a bigger space, and is it easier kind of made COVID usable?
I would actually say not. You'd certainly have to have the front doors open, and actually when you sit in there, certainly it can be quite noisy. So I think at least with the Guildhall, we'll be able to. We've just had the windows repaired, so they can be opened. And we just need to. I've already got a COVID risk assessment in for weddings, so we've got a. Because we've only got one entrance in and out, we've already made, I think going up has got priority, or one way. So we've prioritised up or down. I think it's just how we sit around the table that really needs to be considered. It's not impossible, but it just needs thinking about.
Yeah.
I've got a question, but Councillor Trevor Martin, then Councillor Ben Martin.
Yeah, my question is, do we, bearing in mind that we will then be at full complement by May the 7th, hopefully, 3 other persons will be joining us, though, are we still restricted by numbers that are allowed to meet indoors at that stage? Because again, that's something else that could occur within it.
Not for work, no. Only for socialising. So if it's a work meeting, as far as I understand, not, because certainly from the 12th of April, for instance, weddings can have 15 guests and then they go up to 30. So no restrictions for work.
Thank you.
Councillor Ben Martin.
There would, of course, be some restrictions for the numbers of members of the public that can attend.
Yeah, that's it.
My suggestion was actually that we would have to open up the Guildhall to include the committee room at the rear, which would, of course, give us additional space. It's possible then to do it without the perspex screens, but it's still going to be fairly tight. I think this is a case where we would probably need to delegate, in my opinion, to the officers to investigate what can. If there is a cost implication, then that needs to come to full council. But beyond that, I think we need to delegate to get this done.
Councillor Hook.
I think we must definitely delegate to the town clerk and the other officers to work up a proposal. I mean, I personally think the Guildhall is going to be problematic as it stands, because you've got 14 councillors plus the town clerk, plus members of the public are still entitled to attend, and we should facilitate that as far as we can. So you might have up to 20 or so people, each having to be 2 meters apart from any other person, and so on. So, and probably have a one-way system. I mean, I can tell you, the monitoring officer at KCC has said that if KCC meets physically in May, it won't be at County Hall. And I've heard they're looking at the Marlow Theatre and places of that kind to be, which would normally see hundreds, maybe thousands of people, to fit 80 councillors plus officers a good distance apart. So I would have thought in Faversham, we might have to look at something like the assembly rooms or a church to sit 20 people far enough apart. And I think that would be preferable and probably more cost effective than drilling holes to put up perspex screens. But let's delegate it to the clerk to work up some proposals.
That sounds perfectly sensible to me. Should we vote on that now? Just to agree that now? I'll have to propose Councillor Hook, you could second, and we'll vote on that for the town clerk to review what is the art of the possible. Councillor Hook, just wanted to go back to your previous point on the agenda item which we started on. I'm just trying to remember, was that 7 or 6? Sorry, apologies. It was 7, and you asked a question about whether there was any difference between committees and working groups, and whether that meant we could, consider them differently, and therefore, devolve many of the committees to working groups. Is that still worth discussion, or do we wait until?
I think we should wait. I mean, I think the town clerk's advice on that was that Celt's view was they're in the same boat, but we're not quite sure what that boat is. So, and I get the impression the sort of consensus in the room is we would prefer to keep electronic meetings, but in terms of whether there's a difference between the status of committees or working groups, we don't yet know. So perhaps we need to keep that under review and come back to it next time, either at the full council in a couple of weeks or policy and finance a couple of weeks after that.
If I can just come in there, I think from my perspective, I think it's quite clear the difference, and that there is legislation in the 1972 Local Government Act that says about it. However, the advice from Clt contradicts that, and I think that's where the query is, that legislation is quite clear that full council and standing committees, there is a statutory obligation for members of the public to attend. Subcommittees, working groups, there is no statutory obligation for members of the public to attend. Therefore, my thoughts are we don't have to have them face to face, and still, in some respects, members of the public can attend virtually in the same way as we can. So yeah. I think the legislation is clear. It's the advice that's not.
That's really interesting. So I think on the basis that's really, really helpful. It might, in that case, be attractive to reclassify some or all of the committees as working groups, because that gives us the facility to meet electronically if we want to, and we can still facilitate public. I think public access is really important. Yeah. And I would never want to cut that off. No. We can still choose to facilitate that if we have electronic meetings, and the Policy and Finance Committee becomes a Policy and Finance Working Group. And I think in terms of accountability, you'd still have minutes going to the full council for ratification. It wouldn't really feel that different from me.
Just conscious that we, delegated the work to review what is possible in terms of face-to-face meetings, and in that intervening period as well between now and I don't know whether it's possible to undertake that analysis, Town Clerk, before the next council meeting. But you did then also mention that the Coronavirus Act was also going to be under review this Thursday. I'm conscious then we might not want to make any decision or agree anything other than do that piece of research, and at the full town council meeting which I think is 2 weeks today,
Yep.
isn't it?
6th of April.
To then
Yeah, 6th of April.
review whatever comes up then.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Seems sensible to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically you want me to bring a paper to the next council meeting with a bit more information on it. Hopefully we'll know more by then. I'm just conscious that with policy and finance, that would actually be one that would be difficult to not hold in public face to face. When you're talking about finance, you have to be open. So that would be a difficult one. I just wonder that we have 20s plenty, public spaces, they would probably be a bit easier.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think what Councillor Hook was suggesting, and I don't think anyone else is disagreeing at this stage, is even if they became subgroups and they were held kind of virtually, it doesn't mean we'd exclude the public from those. It's just that, that's clear. Thank you, Town Clerk, and yes, please prepare that paper for the next Town Council meeting. Councillor Trevor Martin, I think you raised your hand briefly.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to suggest that one of the things we've got to do here is wait until the legislation has changed or see what arguments are made. I mean, we're looking at, from what I've been told here, at least 2 different things. One, the legislation around the coronavirus and the regulations that that affects. And also we're looking at court cases that may be heard prior to our next meeting, or even prior to the 7th of May, when everyone goes back to a meeting face to face. Certainly from what I'm hearing from April the 12th, a lot of government departments are looking at returning to normal working, and I think we need to bear that in mind. I don't think there's any appetite for extension in some areas, so we'll just have to wait and see. And we just haven't got enough information tonight to make a decision.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Can I take any further thoughts on items 7 and 10? Otherwise, there's nothing further. So, Councillor Saunders.
It's just a reservation about switching any committees to being working groups. I agree with what Councillor Trevor Martin just said, that a lot could change in the next couple of weeks. But I think kind of changing the status of committees, I can see it's being suggested for kind of sound reasons, but I think it is about kind of changing our relationship with the public a bit. So I think I'd ask that the Town Clerk, in looking at arrangements, does kind of think very carefully about any implications for the public having access to meetings, and the openness of decision making, really, I think is the key thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Saunders. If there are no further thoughts, I'm going to move us on. I think that was a good discussion. And so we've done 7 and 10. I'll go return to item number 8 on the agenda: 12 Marketplace Visitor Information Centre, to receive an update and make recommendations. Who is going to talk to this? Councillor Trevor Martin.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. As you know, we had an approach from the Faversham Society about potentially moving the Visitor Information Centre into 12 Marketplace. Now, the paper, I hope you've all had a chance to have a good look through, is fairly clear. Just for clarification, the business rates section shows retail zone A, retail zone B, ground floor toilets, the rear retail, and the reading room. The reading room currently holds the Doddington Parish Library upstairs, which was in the care of the Faversham Society. Indeed, their librarian looks after it. So that is standard. The zone A and B, zone A, I believe, is I'm not sure which way around they are, Town Clerk, but one zone is the actual bookshop VIC section, one zone is the our exhibition space, meeting area. and the rear retail, as it's called there, would be the Magna Carta exhibition once that's up and running. And what the recommendation is that we pursue a suitable lease to the Faversham Society, and they would become responsible for some costs, mainly the electricity bill for the downstairs area. So the reading room effectively is similar size, as you can see, to the rear retail, so that cancels each other out because of the way the place is metered. What we are looking at is, because the volunteers from the Faversham Society will be available to direct people through to the Magna Carta exhibition, we wouldn't have to either find our own volunteers or indeed employ someone to man that. The amount of space used, for those that don't know, if you look at the building and as you're standing on the marketplace, the right hand side from the columns, not from the very front, but from the columns to the back, become the IC stroke shop. That would give us then a retail element, which is already included in the planning, which would also be able to be utilised for any Magna Carta related sales as well. And we would have to agree that with them. But what we would look at is entering a lease to propose the establishment of a commercial relationship where perhaps after they've paid their bills that we automatically charge them. So for example, the electricity, and perhaps there maybe even any building contents insurance that they may take out, we would perhaps look to take a percentage of any profits above that. Not a vast amount, but say 5% or something in that area. And when we generate our own merchandise, if we do so for the exhibition, we would do the opposite and say, well, okay, you can have 5% of the profit of that, and we'll and do it that way round. But that's the proposal at the moment. Yes, there will be some upfront costs to assign the lease and convert one small toilet into a kitchenette, and perhaps we would negotiate with the Faversham Society around the construction costs of the actual area that they would need to secure, and there would probably need to be a couple of modifications to both our security system and to the fire alarm system, but I think they are fairly detailed in there. And I'll let you carry on, but I propose we go for it.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts or questions on that? Councillor Irwin?
So I apologise, Councillor Martin, if you covered this. I was trying to read as well as listen at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a great piece of work. Well done. I think it's really really well thought out. I see when you're looking at the exclusion for business rates, it includes the area which would be the museum, or sorry, the Magna Carta exhibition. Can you just confirm? Will the Magna Carta exhibition be run by the Faversham Society as that area is leased to them, or will it be managed by the Town Council? I understand the costs will be made by the Town Council, but who will actually run it?
It's not.
As far as responsibility for staffing, etc., it would still be the Town Council. But what you would be bearing in mind is that for the hours that the Visitor Information Centre is open, which is, I think, currently 10 till 4 weekdays and Saturdays, and 10 till 1 on a Sunday, or similar hours, you wouldn't need to provide staff for it because they would be there as well. And the agreement would be that they would act as the stewards, if you like, in that situation. To be fair, there would be that would then save us having to employ someone, or, as I said, try and manage volunteers to do it. And it would be included. The reason it's included in there is because to be blunt, if we don't, it's going to cost us an awful lot of money to split the electricity meter and all the rest of it. And also, as you can see, there is a considerable saving. And in effect, it complies, the Magna Carta exhibition would comply with the aims and objectives of the Irish Society anyway, to cherish the past, etc. So it fits in with what they would be doing, but no, it would be the town council that would manage it, just the same as the exhibition space. Although the visitor information centre would, if that exhibition space wasn't rented out, be allowed to put things in there to keep it interesting, shall we say.
Yeah.
It would be along those lines, that we would still manage the space, but they would be there.
Yeah.
So inevitably, we're trying to be pragmatic about it. If you've got two people standing at a desk in the same room, who are you going to ask about something first? And that was the reasoning behind that. And also, as you can see, it's quite a difference on the rateable values.
Yeah, that's
to
what
go
we
down
said.
that route, which means we would not need to charge the Faversham Society
No,
a rent as such,
of
which
course.
otherwise we may have to.
Yeah.
So it's offsetting one against the other. How we, getting it into legal terms is not my bag. That's what the solicitors are for. But basically, what we're looking at is they would have the bookshop, and I don't mean the second-hand bookshop, but the bookshop and the merchandising of Faversham, which they do through the VIC in there. They would have the VIC there. They would put a reception desk into the front part where, obviously, if they were using it, if the rest of the downstairs front was not in use, they would use it. But it would also allow for out of hours, if they've pulled down roller shutters to the shop bit and locked it up in the evening, that desk is still there to act as a reception for anything else that might be going on in there. So it actually makes it a bit more usable. It means that the building would be open effectively 7 days a week, which I think all of us here were very conscious would be difficult to do otherwise. It will, in many ways, it's a win-win, because the Faversham Society have noted the significant difference in footfall between the current location and 12 Marketplace. They noticed that when they had exhibitions there before COVID, and that's why they've approached us. And I say that we wouldn't need to raise any planning permission or anything else like that, and we would maintain responsibility for the booking space, the exhibition space. Actually, you don't lose that much space, because if you think about how that was being used, effectively most things were wall hung. I think we only had one exhibition in there where it might not have been able to be put in there with the new configuration, which is quite phenomenal, really. And that was the Titanic exhibition, and that was because of the way it was done. Thank you. I'll shut up and others.
Yeah.
Councillor Ben Martin, and then Councillor Hook. Sorry, forgot you in order.
I'll defer to Councillor Hook on this one. He's had his hand up for quite a while.
Sorry, Councillor Hook.
I was just going to ask if Councillor Trevor Martin can talk us through Appendix B, which is the floor plan, because there's no legend of what she said. What are the blue arrows and the brown boxes and the yellow boxes? Are these some changes that would be made to the floor area?
The
brown are the desks.
This is page 7 of 12. So this is, I understand, is the ground floor area.
It's just the ground floor, that one.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the one. Yeah, no, it's the ground floor area. That's the shuttered off area for the VIC, but it leaves all of this area and here still in use for other things. They have got a desk there, but it can be pushed back out the way. So really, technically, they are only asking to be there full time. So other exhibitions can go on at the same time, which would be great. All those that have had exhibitions there. And what else were you asking?
What's the yellow box?
Oh, the windows, you know, the cupboards open so that they can have light and have things there, so they can use those spaces.
Yeah, if you go down, if you walk down through the alley to the marketplace, there are 3 display windows there, which currently have copies of notices in. You
Yeah.
normally go on the boards. And that's what those indicate.
They are, forgive my ignorance, my poor memory from the last time we went down that alleyway, but they're display cases on the outside, aren't they? They're not windows through the wall.
They are windows, yes.
Oh, right.
And
The cupboards are-
inside we
Yeah.
have shutters basically on them, so it looks like walls. But
Yeah.
their intention would be to remove those shutters, so there would be windows. Number 3 on the drawing is the electricity cupboard, and the arrows I have added in just to say this is the area that the Faversham Society. So
Yes.
I added those.
Yeah.
That's very helpful, thank you.
And they put their shutters in.
And I will say to councillors, there are discussions about the exact layout of that area that they would use, because it is thought that maybe a walk through to the rear would be possible through the VIC, so that if someone was using the exhibition space for a meeting or something while during the day, they could still be sort of partitioned off and not
Yeah,
be
they could still partition
to
there.
and fro to the exhibition or to the rear of the building.
Yeah.
Councillor Ben Martin and then Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. So I'm going to be the odd one that looks for the real hole here. We know that business rates and their existence is being reviewed or due to be reviewed. So what sort of plans are we looking at if the system for business rates changes dramatically, impacting the way that this is charged? And secondly, having run concession stores for various organisations in the past, I know how tricky it can be in terms of lease length and what work goes on. So what length of time would we envisage this lease initially being for?
Before Councillor Martin answers that question, maybe we can take Councillor Saunders' question as well, and he can answer them collectively. I've got a question as well. I mean, oddly enough, the recommendation is for us to discuss a lease duration, which I think is the purpose of part of this conversation. Councillor Saunders.
Yeah, it was another kind of what happens if things go wrong question. I mean, I'm supportive of the idea. Are we placing any requirements on the Faversham Society in terms of what it has to deliver? I'm just kind of, trying to look at the worst case scenario. If they were struggling, for example, to find volunteers and the place was closed a lot, are we setting some kind of service terms that or levels of service that we expect them to be providing in return for getting use of the centre, because obviously it's pretty fundamental for us to have the Magna Carta exhibition open at good times and to have the exhibition space open.
Great. So I'm just going to summarise those questions for you, Councillor Martin and Madam Mayor. What is the duration of the lease? When should it be implemented? What happens if business rates change? And what happens if what sort of service guarantee do we get from the Faversham Society to ensure that we get volunteer support and manning the stands?
I think the answer, I'll answer them in reverse order. The service level agreement is the same as, it would be the same one that they currently hold with Swale Borough Council for providing visitor information services. So in effect, we wouldn't need to put in that because they already have that as part of the reason they're a VIC. So that's the first one, although we may need to look at
Need
it
to.
and actually put that in writing, the 10 till 4 bit for Monday to Saturday and 10 till 1 on Sunday. They're effectively their current opening hours. As far as the changes to business rates are concerned, that wasn't something we've taken into that. But I think I just had a message. You consider that in the risk assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the risk assessment, there is a bit about human resources and what would happen if they weren't able to open for any reason, and the risk would be that we would end up providing a member of staff to open up and to keep the exhibition going, possibly in the VIC. But that would be during core hours. So that's in that risk assessment. Thank you, Cllr. I've forgotten to put that there. As far as the business rate change is concerned, that wasn't something that was discussed, but that could be part of the lease conditions, that if business rates change and or the way they're calculated change, perhaps we could look at including a clause that we would then review exactly what proportions are payable, or if any rent is payable. If business rates are got rid of them, we wouldn't have to pay them anymore. But that, I think we would be, it would be remiss to say, to base something on speculation. What if we could say the same thing about, well, the government, we know, are looking at reviewing all how all councils work, and they might abolish parish councils. That was part of a research paper. We don't know that they're going to do that, and they haven't published a white paper about it. So until they do, I don't think we can intimate something along those lines. As far as lease length is concerned, we were looking at 14 years.
Yeah.
Reason being that, one, it gives the Faversham Society security, and would also potentially allow them to get grants from heritage bodies should they so wish. Anything shorter than that, and their board, I think, would say, well, actually, we've got a place now, we can stay where we are, forget it. It's not worth it because we need security. What if the council? Let's be honest, we have seen a considerable change in the makeup of this council, and there's nothing to say that that wouldn't happen again. It's happened on 2 or 3 occasions in my lifetime, and they would want security, that it wasn't something where political masters came in and told them to get out within 6 months or within a year or 2. And I think that's fair comment from them. So that would be the sort of timing we'd be looking at. There are potentially other advantages which may come along as part of this, including being able to allow greater access to the Guildhall, because if people are running, for example, walking tours or whatever around the town, and they're starting from the Visitor Information Centre, there is the potential for them to do actually tour inside the Guildhall, lock it, unlock it, drop the key back into the offices and carry on, sort of thing. So from a economic regeneration point of view, I think it is a good proposition as well, because it may encourage greater visitor, and that's something I want to encourage.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I think you've answered those questions, and it's been really helpful, especially the potential legal considerations, conditions around changes to potential business rates and being reactive. Bearing in mind this is presumably going to be just recommended and then discussed again at full town council, does anyone have any reason why we shouldn't be taking a vote on a lease term that I think that's just been put forward at 14 years? And to agree this positively to go forward to full council? Is there any reason that this should be held up for further investigation? Before, just hold that thought in your mind for just a second. I've got a question, Councillor Martin. Is there any reason that we need to make a pressing decision on this
Yes.
What's Councillor, Madam Mayor?
So I think there is, because I think obviously they've got to take this to their board, which I think meet at the end of the month, 29th of March. So I think I wonder if there's too much of a delay, or if they change their mind, then we're all back to square one for what we do with number 12, and it is 2 years. I know we haven't got to rush these things, but you know, unless there's any big issues, we obviously need to, I think that they could walk away if they feel it's all being too difficult, and then we're left to start again. So I think we've got to think about it. Yeah,
I understand that, but
yeah,
14 years is a hell of a long commitment to make a decision in haste and repent at leisure. I'm not suggesting we are doing that, and I'm actually suggesting we should make this as a recommendation to go to full council, because it's going to get more scrutiny there. Is there any reason why we can't do that?
Yeah.
Councillor Ben Martin.
So I'm having real difficulty with my hearing. So can we just confirm that that was 1414, not 4040?
no, 114.
In which case I would say that 14 is not long enough, in that if you're going for National
Okay.
Lottery funding, or if you're going for funding from some of the Thames Gateway projects, you need a minimum 25-year lease.
Minimum 25, you're right. Yes. So we could ask, yeah.
So I'll ask the question again, because I'm quite fond of the question. Is there any reason, if we agree on a time span, that we as a committee cannot recommend this to full council to discuss to agree? I.e., is there anything more we need investigating, or are we just agreeing a time span to agree it to be recommended to full council? I think we're just agreeing a time span.
I do.
Feels to me like there's enough due diligence here to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the starting number? Who's proposing what? Are we proposing 25 years or 14? Councillor Martin.
I would propose, as per the document, 14. That is what the Faversham Society have asked for. And I think it may be that they have also got some sort of other agreements which tie in with that time scale. So I would rather accept a 14, give them a 14, and then if they come back to us in the future and ask for an extension, much as the Faversham Municipal Charities did with Swale Borough Council over the recreation.
Great, that's the proposal. Do we have a seconder for that?
Yep.
Madam Mayor, can we all vote on the term? Everyone approve that?
At least 14, and if they want more.
Does anyone abstain? I know Councillor Martin, Ben Martin is also approving. That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Ben Martin. Then I think we should just agree that we make the recommendation that the period of the list is 14 years. I think we've agreed on the area and the terms of the lease to be put forward, assuming that we are able to get a clause in for change, assuming anything happens with business rates. Are we all, Councillor Ben Martin?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty general legislative change clause, so which should be picked up by any half-decent solicitor anyway, so
Super stuff.
It shouldn't be a major issue.
So can I just have a proposal and seconder for that as a general motion then for both the area? Gets a proposer from Councillor Trevor Martin, seconder. Madam Mayor, can we all vote on to accept those as a recommendation? Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Councillor Trevor Martin for a good piece of
could I just say, can we thank the Town Clerk as well? She's put a lot of work into that. Yeah,
Yes.
very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, before we move on, did you want to look at the second recommendation, which was the terms of the lease? So about the peppercorn rent, or is that under the? Does that come under the bit where you said about the business rates?
I thought we agreed.
Yeah.
Part of that recommendation. If anyone doesn't agree with that,
okay, that's fine. Just checking.
No. I'm happy to move this on. That it was all. I'm conscious we've still got a few other agenda items left, and the policy review in and of itself could be fairly extensive. I'm going to suggest unless anybody disagrees, that firstly the town clerk could point to any areas that have significantly changed from the previous policies that have already been accepted. And then if anybody has any points to raise on any of the policies specifically, we can talk to those. But collectively, if there isn't too much, we'll vote to collectively accept them. Town clerk, can you talk to any kind of significant changes where they may have existed in those documents?
You've caught me out there now.
Yes.
Right. I have to say that largely there hasn't been many changes, and I think where the changes have been largely over the last year, the way we've operated for COVID, and community engagement, the different methods that we're engaging. So really, I've gone through, I've updated them all where necessary, but they've actually only been minor changes, and just to make changes relevant in the last year.
Can I then ask the Councillor Ben Martin?
Having spent the afternoon reading through them all, I'm more than happy and content. I would like to propose that we accept them.
I'm of the same mind, but I do also allow any other councillors that have read them.
No,
Any
I've got them all
particular
printed out.
I wanted to raise. No, in which case, Councillor Ben Martin, if you propose that we accept them, I'm happy to second that we accept them. Can we vote on those? Unanimous. I actually thought that was going to take about 3 hours, so quite a win, really. Lottery working group, to receive the minutes of the lottery working group. Councillor Saunders, will you be talking to that?
I can do, Chair. So yeah, you've got the minutes of the last meeting, which are on the 2nd of March. I think the key things to identify to you were that we've got over 40 good causes that have now signed up for the lottery. At the time of the meeting, we'd sold 466 tickets. I think progress has been made since then. I don't know if the town clerk can
As an
update us. And I think the other thing to say is it's the first draw is only about 10 days away, so anything people can do to encourage their friends and neighbours to buy tickets would be great. And I think it's also particularly worth noting that getting the good causes themselves to promote themselves, the lottery, to their members is quite key. I was quite disappointed to see that when I got the Faversham Society newsletter, they didn't seem to have done that. But if you're involved in organisations, if you can encourage them to do that, that will really help. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Saunders. Do we need to vote to accept those minutes? Town clerk?
You can do, yes, and I'm just going to give you a brief update that we've got 826 tickets have been purchased by nearly 400 players. So
that's fantastic.
That's doing quite well.
I have to admit, I haven't bought my tickets yet, which I'm
what I'm finding, I'm meeting a lot of people in town of my age group that really want tickets, but of course they can't go online, they don't know how to use the technology, and that's really, I hadn't realised we'd have that bracket of people that I know they can phone in, so I'm trying to give them out the phone number to phone, but it's a shame they can't just buy a ticket like that. But that's only my generation. I'm sure the others are managing quite well.
Can we vote to accept those? I'm happy to second. Presumably, Councillor Saunders, you're proposing to accept?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. That's good work to see. I think last but one item, the Guildhall. Town Clerk, you able to talk to this?
Yes, just to confirm that we've now had the windows decorated after they were repaired and replaced. We've had the new heating in, and where the new heating units are smaller, it has really brought forward the need to have the certainly below the dado rail painted. Now that is something that Adam is happy to do. Obviously, it would take him away from other work. Otherwise, the painter that we had for the windows has given us a quote for 3,000. But as I say, Adam would be happy to do it. But I think it is work that needs to be done, and it would be useful to have it done before we go back in there in May, and certainly before weddings start back as well.
Councillor Ben Martin.
Given the how close we are to weddings restarting, I think we may have to bring the external painter in, primarily just so that there's time to get the painting done before we have a wedding in there, because you never know with some circumstances, people may want to book one within sort of a fortnight to a month's time, given what's been going on recently.
Can I ask what the budget situation is around this? Do we have presumably?
Yes, we do have enough money, and in actual fact, our first wedding's the 8th of May, so it's quite imminent. And we do have sufficient money to pay for the 3,000 in our reserves.
Which is what they're there for. Councillor Hook.
Question: what colour is it proposed to paint it? Is it to match the existing light brown, or contemplated?
Magnolia, is it?
It's not magnolia, it's a heritage colour, but it would be, yes.
Green.
I think due to the listing of the building, it has to be that heritage colour without going and messing about with planning permissions.
Yes, and if the facilities manager, the petition is built for the VIC, he'll need to perhaps be involved with that as well, so he will be a bit busy. I would agree, get the painters in.
Councillor Trevor Martin.
Yeah, I think we should, in this instance, yes, it does need doing. And you're quite right that with weddings booked already, there's nothing worse than somebody sitting there looking at the coloration.
Not a good recommendation.
So I would recommend that we delegate this to the town clerk and the facilities manager. If the facilities manager thinks he's got time to do it all and amongst his other duties and can do it in time, fine, that's great. If not, we can use the painting, we can use the paint and decorate if they think that's not more expedient and get the job completed in time for the first wedding. So I think I think we should delegate that and allow the spend up to the £3,000 mentioned in the agenda.
Needed.
Any thoughts to the contrary or a seconder? Councillor Hook.
I've just checked my planning textbook, and listed building consent is not usually needed for internal painting of most listed buildings, but it doesn't necessarily mean we should change the colour. It might be, I think we should establish a position whether we have to stick to that colour, because sometimes you think, oh, it must have always been like that, and actually you find out it's only been that way since 1992 or something like that. And I personally think that's a really unattractive colour, that if we could change it to white or something else, we should do. I think it's less important on the lower part, but I don't think we should make a decision on the assumption it cannot be changed, because my quick look of my planning law textbook says it's not as simple as that. So could we just ask that the town clerk researches that point, and then it comes back? We've got the whole of April before this wedding, so it might be that the full council in 2 weeks' time could consider this point. And if there are some listed building considerations, then actually the facilities manager needs to have clear information on that, because it might be a certain type of paint is going to have to be secured. It might be more expensive than a more standard paint that he's been thinking about.
So I think I've got two proposals there. One suggesting we delegate the authority, and the other suggesting we come town clerk.
Yeah, can I just confirm that Adam has got the full details of the type of paint that's been provided by John Sell, our previous architect, and it's also in the quinquennial report. So he knows the type, sort of the heritage one. And I believe that we can change the colour without it being an issue as well.
I think Councillor Hook would like a colour palette, Town Clerk.
Yes.
Well, perhaps we can just bring it back to the full council. Perhaps the facilities manager could come back with some sort of looks, and we can get some photographs of how it looks now and just look. I mean, maybe for the lower part, I'd forgotten that there's a lower part and a upper part. Maybe quite often in buildings you have a darker colour below or above. But you know, we can see what different options are. It might be you could either keep it all light brown or go all white, or have a very dark lower part and a white upper part. It would be quite striking. I mean, I don't know if there's any research on what the Guildhall, how it was coloured when it was first built or rebuilt, because certainly the outside colour has changed. I've seen photographs that appear to show it's been white or cream.
Can I, if I may, sorry, Councillor Irwin.
I just wonder whether we could ask someone for Faversham Society. They have conservation architects and their members.
That'd be good. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
So can I want to split this down into two things then. One is who undertakes the work, which is proposal by Councillor Martin that we delegate the authority to who undertakes the work to the Town Clerk and the Facilities Manager. I'm happy to second that. Can we vote on the delegation who undertakes the work? All those in favour? Thank you. So we delegate the authority for that. But that the second item was that we propose we get Faversham Society. I think, Councillor Hook, you're happy with that change and amendments? Make a recommendation to the Town Council that we look at the next Town Council meeting. To have a seconder for that? Councillor Irwin, can we vote on that? Great. Lovely. Anything else that we want to discuss on the paintwork in the Guildhall? No, if not,
Good.
number 13, item number 13, last but not least, items to report, informational items for the next agenda. I'm conscious that I have one where I think we potentially even wanted to try and put it on this agenda, but we have budget courtesy of the Kent County Councillor grant for some academic work into reasons behind the potential mitigations of kind of antisocial behaviour behaviour in Faversham, and I think it might be good to potentially look at that at the next meeting if we can perhaps get a couple of us to consider something around that. So perhaps Councillor Hook, you and I can maybe talk about what that looks like at the next meeting. Anybody else have anything else that they feel? Councillor Saunders.
It's, I think, probably an item for information. I have spoken recently with Brian Jeffrey from the Solar Cycleway campaign, and we've also received, the Town Clerk's also had correspondence from the developer of Cllr, the Cllr Hills site. Not a very positive response really in terms of us saying we want to see a cycleway there, but Mr. Jeffrey is a very committed man, and he's very determined with the campaign. So he is keen for us to write letters to various organisations, and also wants to explore the possibility of running some kind of competition for schools, similar to some of the things we've done in the past. So I just wanted, by way of information, to kind of report that I was planning to liaise with the Town Clerk over who we have the resources to write to, and also explore probably with Claire Windridge the possibility of running some kind of competition with schools. So yeah, I think at this stage that's for information, but if you feel you'd like more of a discussion on it at the next meeting, it could go on the agenda for that.
Great.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Saunders. Anything else from anyone else before I draw to a close? If not, I thank you very much for your time, and I guess most of us will be on the call tomorrow, and so I look forward to seeing you all then.
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.